you go. Step up. Okay. Good. Coucher. There you go. Coucher, yes. Yeah. Coucher. There you go. Yeah.
Not doing it. Above ground, everything's at the same height, after the same solar energy, subject to the same tests, so that they're both competing for and affected negatively by the exact same things at the exact same time. Well, you're going to end up with depleted soil, at least for what you're trying to grow, and you're going to end up with pest problems. You look at a forest, and you take a little 10 by 10 square area, and you might find 100 different species in there. So that's nature's model. So permaculture it's everything you said, but it's also understanding we have to have the diversity to create these interspecies relationships, because we've learned things like plants actually communicate through fungal hyphae, which is insane.
Oh, it is.
But a plant will, like, basically, if it gets attacked and it's weak, it will send out certain distressors that will run through that fungal network. And other plants that are of the same species will do things like change their pH, so that they turn off their attractiveness to a pest, or they're more resistant to it, and that one kind of becomes a sacrifice. But if the fungus is dead in the soil, that's like you're trying to make a phone call to me and the lines are down. And we're just beginning to understand dirt, let alone, ecosystems as a whole.
Well, yeah, that's a good point too, and I found actually a really good article on how fungus communicates with how plants use fungus to communicate. It was mind-boggling. It was amazing. Not only that, but understanding the bacteria too that we used to eat with our hands, and we used to get dirt on our hands and our food all the time. And those different strains of bacteria that we'd actually pick up from the dirt that would end up in our gut, which were actually now what we call today probiotics.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's interesting how you tie all that in, because it all.
And the only objection, as a paleo or primal guy, you'll love this, right? So the only objection people ever have is, well, how do I grow a great big field of wheat? And the answer is you don't.
Yeah, you don't.
Right? There's a place for some grains and things like that, especially as animal feed, but you don't grow that system anymore. You don't have the giant field with a combine going down it. And if you are actually a permaculturist practicing permaculture instead of a vegan hippie that's co-opted the concept, you're going to end up with a diet that's very paleo-primal in nature. People say, well, how much rice can I eat? I'm like, all you can grow in your backyard, man.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, right? Or how much wheat can I have? All you can grow. And the truth is you probably can, because you're not going to grow that much. Especially if you're doing this integrated species model. In fact, you probably will find yourself going, that's not worth doing. I mean, about the only grain around here is I buy sacks of barley to sprout it for my chickens. Well, I grow up sorghum too, but it's for them, it's not for me.
Yeah, and that's why I can't wait to get out there and learn, because, like I said, I'm no expert in this at all. So this is going to be very helpful, not only just to understand for me, but I think to all of my followers, because everyone's very interested in kind of the self-reliance movement, and this is a huge part of it.
It really is, and I think what turns people off is a lot of times if you look at permaculture, I'd say the most vocal group of permaculturists are the hippie segment. And to be fair, there's two very distinctive kinds of hippies. There's productive hippies, which are great, and then there's what I've learned now that the hippie community has their own word for the hippies that we don't like, because they don't like them either. They're called drainbows, because they're like a rainbow hippie, but they're a drainbow. They drain their own community's resources, but they're always the most vocal. So a person hears this permaculture thing that already sounds kind of hippie-ish, then you pull up some guy that's talking about social justice, and they're just like, I don't want anything to do. I thought this was about food. But it is about food. And the founder of this thing is a guy named Bill Mollison. He founded this thing back in the 70s, and he's like this crazy old man warrior guy that grew up as a hunter in Tasmania. And you got this hippie segment going, it's all about veganism, man. And the guy that founded it's like, one of my favorite quotes by him is, "There's no such thing as a vegetarian. There are only repressed carnivores."
Yeah.
And that's the guy that founded this thing. So I think when people find out about him or his number one protege, a guy named Jeff Lawton, and learn the true science of the design patterns, they realize that it's something that